Good evening and welcome to BTG, Bridging the Gap Strategizing for Student Success. I am super excited to have with me a few of my co hosts, Dr. P and Levon McMillan. And we're going to be talking to you today and for the rest of the month about motherhood, women, influence, impact, and results, empowerment. And so, without further ado, I'm going to bring on my guest. But this is BTG. This is Bridging the Gap, strategizing for student success. This is all about our young people and what it takes to bring them up, to teach them about self awareness, self leadership, and how to cultivate them in the role of growing up and becoming leaders themselves. And so, without further ado, I have with me tonight Dr. P is in the house and Levon McMillan. And so, Dr. P, just let them know who you are and how you work with young people. And Levon, then you talk about your foundation and talk and let the people know about all of what you do. So, Dr. P, you're up.
Good evening, everyone. So glad to be back with you today. Bridging the gap, that means so much because not only do I work with Marissa with Bridging the Gap, and we're talking about our youth, but ministry as well, being a part of Bridging the Gap, not even knowing that the names would come together, but that's the way God does it as well. So I do a lot of things, but my main thing being a college professor, teaching communications to younger people to really effectively, hopefully, let them see that who they can become. A lot of people you will notice, especially with our youth, they're always kind of asking you when they see older people, what did you do? How did you do these things? It's our chance now through Bridging the Gap and other things that we do. We can tell them, we can show them. So by the time they're our age, there's training and building up the next generation. It really does take a village because we think about all the people in our lives, even just beyond our two parents that make us the people that we are. That's what we want to do. We want to be the bridge in that gap. So good to be here again. Yeah.
There you go. There you go. And so, Levon, share with us a little bit about who you are and the work that you're doing to make a difference, to be that voice. Remember, we talked about that here in the Dominican Republic, being that voice. So, what is your voice for the people?
Great evening. Again, my name is Levon McMillan, and I am the mother of two children, Jordan and Jada. And so they are a handful, but they keep me busy and keep me motivated and helping others. So, how do I help the village? I've been an educator for over 25 years. Um,
Wow.
and then when I was younger, I always used to watch my cousins. So I guess it was built in me to work with children. So I'm always working with them, whether they're 6 months old all the way up until 18 years old. And so I'm always instilling in that. And like Dr. P said, like it takes a village. It definitely does. And so that actually the village and me helping others is what started our both of our organizations, Advocate for Me LLC, where we offer resources, advocacy, and training to families who have special for families who are caring for their special needs child. And so, as a mom of a child that was born 28 weeks premature, I started learning that from day one. And so now our journey, he's almost 16, and 16 years later, now we just launched his foundation, Jordan A. Smith Foundation. It's a nonprofit where we're reaching out to special needs families in different capacities, whether it's through literature, because my son is an author of his first children's book about having a feeding tube. And so just instilling that in him to be more community driven and to do what mom is doing, helping the village, helping them grow, and letting them see that, despite what you may have been dealt with in the beginning, you can overcome and achieve whatever God has planned for you. So thank you for having us tonight.
Absolutely, because we do. It's about legacy at this point, right? Our kids are getting ready to be, your son is in his teen, he's in his late adolescence age, early adulthood, and it's what do we do? So once we have our children, once we give birth to them, the first thing is to take care of them. They're little, they need all of our attention, they need all of our nurturing and love. But as they grow, we begin to see for ourselves what needs to be done in our community when it comes to our young people. Where is there a gap in what they need and how we can support them? So, Bridging the Gap was kind of like it was birthed out of, if we want to take it back, me being a mom, it was kind of birthed out of me just, going into the workforce, starting my career, going into the workforce and just not having a clue, like graduating high school. And it's like, okay, well, what's next? I wasn't around folks who talked about college. They didn't talk about, we were just hanging out, we really, honestly, our conversations were always about life. They weren't about what's next. They were just about life, overcoming, the challenges of life. I love, drawing and doing artistic work, but we never had the conversations about college. And the one conversation I did have with my guidance counselor when I shared with him that I wanted to be a criminal attorney, he said criminal attorneys don't make a lot of money. Ignorant from the door, because the criminals are the ones with the money. So they make a lot of money. And so anyway, that kind of deterred me. And my mom just was not the one to have the conversation. She was too busy being concerned about our well-being and the roof over our head and food on our tables and clothes on our backs. So she wasn't really having those conversations. And so as someone who found out later in life how much of a high achiever I am, I look back and say, if I had someone to start introducing the conversation of what's next, and then giving me the tools and the resources that were necessary to help me along the way, then just imagine where I could have been earlier. Now, I don't take nothing from my journey, right? I still love the life I have led up to this point because it has been a very, very blessed life. I have been the exception and not the rule, living very, very well, in spite of. But what I want to do is put the power of decision making into the hands of the young person so that they can navigate more successfully, that it's not by happenstance, but it is by strategy and intent. And so that's why we're here today having that conversation. And our focus this month is on mothers. And I know for me, being a mom, it was very important for me to make an impact on my children, to be a powerful influence on my children, on the decisions that they make, the choices that they make, and also the behavior that they displayed. So that was very important for me as a mother. I hope, and my prayer is that I have been effective in doing so. My children would be the ones who could tell you the answer to that. But anyway, I want to charge you with this. What I know that you had your experience with your son being premature. What made you decide to take an organized, not just complain, not just fuss and give your feedback to organizations or medical groups or doctors that you just frustrated, or how you felt, but what made you decide to structure an organization to be a voice? What made you do that?
Right.
A lot of it came from I worked in early intervention since I had to be home with my son. So I worked in early intervention where I was able to make up my own schedule. And so through early intervention, I worked with a lot of mothers and fathers in their homes. And what their one thing that I kept hearing them say is once they got discharged, the birth to three, then they go, they either go to preschool or 3 to 5, then they're now transitioning to kindergarten. And they didn't know what to do. So it's like, Levon, wait, like before you leave, can I ask you this information? And so I found myself pulling out resources for them, and I worked in 3 different counties here in Pennsylvania. I worked in Bucks County, Delaware County, and Philadelphia County. So
Okay.
some of the resources I had in my back pocket, and then some I had to go and research for them. And so with me researching the information, I would give them the information and they would call me or text me and be like, oh my goodness, thank you for that. Like that was so helpful. I'm glad that you gave it to me. And so I kept getting more phone calls because then they kept calling and telling their friends and they like, well, LaVon, she gave me this information.
Right.
So that turned into like they were calling me constantly. And I was like, okay, well, let me just make this into a business. And so the name of our business is actually a chapter in a book called Women Thriving Fearlessly. And
Mhm.
so when I was trying to think of a name, God was like, duh, I already gave you a name. And I was like, oh, okay, advocate for me. So we turned it into a LLC. And so it just went from there, me just pouring into other mothers, giving them feedback. And we have a event that we sponsor every April during Autism Awareness Month. I was helping two moms who children are autistic, and then I realized I was listening to their stories, and I'm like, wait, I'm like, we have the same pains and the same, emotions, and I'm like, well, let me just do something for them. And so that month I sponsored Autism Moms Night Out, and we had about 15 moms come, and I just opened the floor for them to talk. And when I say moms was crying and they
Yeah.
was hugging each other and they was just pouring into each other. And then so this year make our 5th year. And so I was just like, I just need to keep doing it because nobody's actually out here. If they helping the moms is more like I was doing in the beginning, just giving them a resource. But they need more attention and more people to be out there, being a supportive system to them. Because being a special needs mom, we do like you said, we gotta make sure it's a roof over their head, clothes on their back, and food on their table. But we also gotta make sure we attending those medical appointments, the therapy appointments. I just sat with my son's school yesterday, like sitting at my son's school. So we have like those extra layers that we have on us, but we still walk out of the house. You may see like some of them memes where the mom hair just all over her head and she just looking crazy. But some days we do come out like that because we didn't get no sleep. But
Wow.
we keep pushing and making sure that our kids are productive citizens in this world, despite what people might look at them and say. Our kids they're going to become adults one day. And so we just want to make sure that they're accepted and allowed to be part of whatever God may have them to do in the community.
And to navigate through that, right?
Yeah.
So to successfully, emotionally, and mentally and physically navigate through all of that. And a mother has such an influence because a mom is nurturing, patient, understanding, affectionate, touching and holding and squeezing. At least we hope our moms are like
Yeah.
that. And so that's why, even though you may not be a natural mom, you gave birth to a child or not. Women show up in the capacity of being moms by the way that they nurture. In the absence of them having their own children, the way that they nurture other children, because the motherly heart is in them. And so we shout out to you. We say Happy Mother's Day all month long. And you know how I feel. We should be celebrating mothers every single day of every day of the year. We should not stop celebrating. I want to read this, and this is from this is it. It goes here. This was written in 2018, but it still affects us. Why mother is the most influential in the family? Because her place is irreplaceable in every stage of your life. With each day, her importance is every department of your life simply grows, and that's what makes her the most important person in your life. She gave birth to you, and all your life should be forever grateful to her. That's so important. A
Mhm.
mother is, she can't be replaced, but even still, a child still yearns for the acceptance of the biological mother whenever it's possible. So I will do a shout out, no matter what has happened and you're if you are separated from your child or not separated from your child, if anything's going on, if it's possible in your heart to be available to your child, pray and just ask God to help you, because your children need your affirmation. They need to know that things are well between you and them. So if there is a place of reconciliation, um, look, just cross over that. Just cross over that. Get past that. I know I share it often. I remember watching my brother and my dad's relationship. Children want to, if it's at all ever possible for the biological parent and the child to have any kind of reconciliation, it just helps the child so much. I mean, it really, really releases the child to move on with their lives and to go and thrive when that relationship is repaired and restored. Um, so, in the sense that it's irreplaceable, I would say that if you're open and you don't have your biological mom is not showing up and a woman is willing to take that place, in a sense it is replaceable, you can have someone come in and just love on you, and receive the love and be open to receiving the love. It's all about getting to a place of healing, restoration, so that you could just live, so you could just live and enjoy your life. And so we take that for granted in all of our bickering and all of our looking at the small things. When we look at the bigger picture, the bond of the parent and the child is so critically important. If it's at all possible to reconcile, and that just really is whether or not each party is willing to forgive the other party. That's what it boils down to. Is if there is room in the heart for forgiveness. But I wanted to read that part because moms are so important. Just like you said, a mom will run out of the house looking like a hot mess, right? We sacrifice our image so that our kids can make sure my baby's safe and, don't do nothing to my child. I got to make sure. Or, baby, you forgot this or you forgot that. And we'll get in the car and drive all the way to the school, look at a hot mess and the slippers running. Don't look at me. Here's the stuff. Let me get back out of here. Mothers do what they have to do to make sure that their babies are okay. What is something that you would want to share in regards to like an experience as a mom that you may have had? Dr. P, what's an experience? You don't have any children, but what's an experience that you've had with someone? I know you've been loving on some young people. What's an experience that you've had? There's been a major sacrifice for you.
I don't have biological children, but ended up raising a child. So
Mhm.
that's a deeper story. And I say that way. But the deepest thing, and of course, I just chatted because that's what I do.
Oh, you and the notes.
Mothers are our first teachers. My mom is my heart, and she knows that. I'm with her right now, even. And the first person to teach you how to love. But when I always speak of the village, because I even shared that when we were there with you a couple of days ago, we were all talking about the fact that we have biological children, but a lot of us have children that come to us first
Hmm.
because of maybe some situations and circumstances. So that particular child, I have to say that's good because of course they're grown now. But did you talk to your mom on
Right.
purpose? Because at the same time, you want to know what your place is as a mother, but where you fit in. And even one of the best examples, we got an opportunity to, while we were all together, to experience what having a godmother and a spiritual mother is in the place of those that don't have their mothers. And I'm really thankful because actually, even as a child, I learned from a friend who had lost her mom in childhood. So she never had that. So she often looked at our mothers and what that meant. So that's
Right.
when I knew, that's what it is about. When we're talking about the village and we're talking about that extended family, I've known from almost birth how important that is, that it's not sometimes just about the birth, but it's about the love. And that a lot of successful people that didn't have the foundations of stable mothers and fathers, they would not have made it. without women, like you just said, that nurtured and kept them, that prayed for them, prayed over them. You know, one of the best experiences and one of the best people in my life was my godmother, and she's no longer here. But the foundations of knowing about God, that is what we, especially as women, Lavon, you just said it. You're going to be the person that's going to teach a person how to treat other people, especially after you're gone. That's the most beautiful thing you can do for any other
Mhm.
human being. Because at this point, that's, the things, the words of wisdom. We're writing books, and we could fill books up of just the things we've learned from the women, the mothers that have taught us, our grandmothers, our aunts, our sisters, and even our friends. Because what we didn't know, we didn't know. We want to be able to make sure that we're going to keep extending it. So that's the greatest experience, actually, for me, of just knowing what the importance of being a mother, would be, because I
Is
saw
being
that.
that role model.
Yeah,
You
I
you
saw
said
that
that.
in a
It's
friend,
the
from 5 years old. She didn't have her mom. So
hmm Yeah.
yeah,
And so we are to be that model.
yeah.
As women, in the role in the absence of other mothers, we
Mm,
are to be that role model. I say that all the time, that it's so important that we recognize that our young people are constantly looking at us. But there is a sacrifice. So that sacrifice also too is that you have to make sure that you do a lot of self-regulating, right? So we talked about being here in the DR. We talked about um, the people here in the Dominican Republic, and I shared about how the culture is very family oriented, and the kids are everywhere, and so we kind of talked about that, and we talked about the importance that. Um, there needs to be boundaries, right? So that we protect our children from seeing inappropriate behavior before it's time, right? And so one of those things is as parents, as moms, we kind of want to put that hedge of protection around them. It's There's a time and a place for them to see, and that's a major sacrifice because as adults, when we want to cut up and hang out and be, we want to be the kids, right?
mm,
We can't be the kids. That's a major sacrifice, but it tells to how much when you see adults and you see young people, you can tell the value of the young people by the behavior of the adults. Now, if the adults are cutting up footloose and they're doing whatever they want to do, and now they have the kids exposed to that, then the value of the child is very, very low. That's a low value of the child. When the parents are making sure that the children, they're behaving, that means that they're not doing whatever they feel like doing, but they're behaving and saying, even though we want to have drinks, or even though we want to, do different things, that because the kids are around, we cannot do that. That is a sacrifice. It's a sacrifice, but it's a sacrifice because you see the bigger picture, the more damage that can be done if the
mm,
children are exposed to this, footloose kind of behavior. And so that's what's important. And I think that in today's age, we are running a huge risk, wouldn't you say? Because we've gotten a little lax. I remember, as a kid, when the company came, the kids had to go in the back room. There was a designated spot in the
mm,
house for the kids to go, that they could not be around the adults. They could not be around the adults smoking, and that's regular cigarettes, not what everybody's smoking today, and everybody is smoking today. That's regular cigarettes. They're not around the adults today, and then they're also not, they're not around the conversation,
mm,
so they're not hearing adult topics. That's the importance of, that's a mom too. A mom is like, no, even though some of the men may be okay with some stuff where it may be flying over the man's head, the woman is like, no, they gotta go over here because I don't want them listening to this. That's inappropriate, and that's what a mom does.
right.
Takes them to the side. So Levon, I know you said you started smiling when I said that. As kids, we were not allowed in the adult space.
Mm.
My
You
grandma said, "Real quick, go in the back room." That was where we had to go. Go in the back room, and then
know,
it was like a door to separate us. And she used to close that door, and we'd be like, "Why is she closing us in?" Not that I mean, it was a big enough room. We still played and everything, but we could never figure out why we couldn't stay in there.
well, now we know, right? We know because you can tell a child who knows their place because of the way that they were raised, and you could tell a child that's ready and they're like in the bullet chamber, ready to shoot their mouth off about the adult conversation. And you
Mm.
know that this child has been, unfortunately exposed to a lot of adult conversation. And
Mhm.
that's a problem because here you're at home and you're allowed to be exposed to things that are inappropriate, that you're not ready to, unless the adults are ready to have the full conversation with the child so that the child is educated about what they're experiencing and grounded, because we talked about the only way kids will be responsible is through maturity, and maturity comes through an intellectual conversation. You have to have an intellectual conversation about a subject matter in order for a young person to uh, respond to it maturely, right? Am I
Yes.
right? Am I wrong? Because
No.
if they lack knowledge, they're going to be giggling about it. They're going to be laughing about it. They're going to be doing that kind of foolish stuff. And
Mhm.
that says that they're not mature enough to handle the conversation, not because of their age, but because of their mindset and behavior. So you have to have the adult, if you're going to talk to them, if you're going to introduce them to stuff, make sure that they're knowledgeable about it. And when I say knowledgeable, correctly educated so that they are mature in the conversation, not smart mouths,
Mhm.
smart pants running around being smart but don't know everything. You know what I mean? And so we as moms, as part of the nurturing and the protecting part, because we are protectors as well, we will say immediately, if we're wise women, let me say that, if we're wise women, we'll say, they need to go over here and y'all need to go over here to have that conversation.
Right.
Am I right? Am I wrong?
Definitely.
Yes.
We
Definitely.
know, because we don't want our young people showing up in the situations and they're dealing with another adult, and the adult looks at them like they're disrespectful, they're immature, they're childlike, and then commences to deal with the child in that manner, right? If we want our children to be protected, we have to teach them their place so that when they're out in the world, they know what to say, when to say it, what's appropriate and what's inappropriate.
And we as adults have to think about that because even now we realize that we have to guard our tongue and think about things before we say it. But we know we got that from a foundation that was
Hmm.
healthy, that taught us that. So imagine if you don't do that for your children or the children in your life that may not be taught. This is what you should do, this is what you should say. 10 years from now, that situation that could be happening, if you teach it now, they're going to be able to handle it. That's what we're supposed to be doing, especially as mothers and women. Period.
Mhm. Yeah. There's I just want to piggyback off of what Marissa was saying. I remember, so when my son was born, prior to that, I partied and did, hung out with my family and friends. And when he was born, I kind of like cut all that out because I majority of my time I was at the hospital with him.
Right.
And even when he came home, I still didn't like go out and party. And so I remember my kids, we were at a wedding, and you know how they had champagne at the wedding. So my kids, prior to that, my kids never saw me drink anything. And so I'm drinking out of the champagne glass, and they like, "Mom, you drinking?" And I was like, "It's champagne." I was like, "What? What am I doing?" And they was like, "No, they was trying to take the glass out my hand." And I was like, "What are y'all?" I was like, and I'm like, "It's like ginger ale. Like, what are you doing?" And
Right,
like, we've never seen you drink before. And so just
right,
piggyback, that's why I was over here laughing when you were saying that, because I had already cut off. Like, my thing was I never wanted to continue partying and drinking and with my friends, and then something happened to my son, and in the middle of the night I got to take him to Children's Hospital, and they like, oh, mom was intoxicated, or I
Right.
never wanted them to write that on my thing. So I was like, oh no, we gonna cut it out. Y'all go ahead, still party, do what y'all going to do, but I gotta be mindful of what I'm doing and be here for my son. And so that was 24/7 for me. And that wedding, they didn't know how to react. My daughter was on one side, my son was on the other. Like, no, you get it, you take it from her.
That's
Oh,
Just
oh,
on that, like they're watching you, whether you see them watching you or not. And with this social media, like you gotta be careful what you posting and putting up, because it could be your kid's friend that come up to you and say, "Hey, I saw your post." I
right.
actually met
that's
somebody,
it.
one of the kids at the school just walked up to me and said, "I saw your photo shoot." And I was like, "You saw my photo shoot?" Because the photographer had made like a video and posted me in the photo shoot. And I was like, "Oh, you follow the photographer?" And it's like, "Yeah." I was like, "It's like,
Oh,
but these kids is watching you, whether you
They're
know they are
watching
or
you.
not." And so you gotta definitely lead by example, whether it's your kids or somebody else's kids watching you.
Exactly.
Somebody always got their eyes on you.
yeah, somebody's always got your eyes on you, and it's so important for you to pay attention to that. And it's temporary. How long are you going? You're not going to be around the kids forever.
Mhm.
You can go and have a good time, and they do not have to be in the midst of that. They don't need to be in there. They're already going to get pressured to do things that are not right from their peers. They don't need to be immersed in these kind of situations
Mhm.
outside of that. You as a parent, and they're looking for us to be hypocritical, right? They're looking for us to be hypocrites, right? They're looking for us because then they can hold that against us, so that they can now, say, well, we saw you do it, so we thought it was okay. Any excuse, they're gonna lead on the path of less resistance, right? The easiest path. And so you want to make sure that you're setting the example. Mothers have influence, impact, and they can get results if they're intentional. If they're really, really intentional, they can get results from their children and the results that they want to achieve. I remember someone saying to me that our children are God's assignment for us. And they said they took the approach that they wanted to get an A. And I sat back and watched this individual raise her children, and it was beautiful. We all have things that we could do better, but this woman did very good by her children, and she got very good results. Very proud of her children, and they've gone on to do some spectacular things. With that being said, I actually took hold of that. I was like, wow, that's a very good way of looking at it. Like, you've been given your children, and what have you done with them? What have you done with them? They're a blank slate, honestly, other than the natural gifting and calling and purpose that they have on their life. They're a blank slate. We cultivate them. We are the first relationship that they have, before they actually have any types of relationship outside the house. And so we are the ones who lay the foundation for their perspective, how they see things, how they process information that's coming in, and then what they do with that behavior, their whole attitude. We cultivate that in the home. Closing thoughts, ladies. Dr. P, you're up.
You just said something that it made me think about one of the one of the things that I think about with children, period, is you want their respect. Not
Hmm.
because you have to be better, stronger, faster, but if children can look at you and say they would want to be like you, or they just give you respect, in a way it can show you that you're doing something right. Other adults, we're dealing with each other on a level playing field, but children coming up to you, hugging you. Coach often talks about his students, and you being, maybe even especially for boys, you're the only male figure that some of them will ever have. But I think about that often, that I want the kids in my life, the children in my life, the younger people as they grow into adulthood, to know that I do things in order as much as I can, get caught up just as being an adult, just like anything else. But if I know that you can go ask a young person something about me when they get to know me, I often think you're doing something right because they are a blank slate. And the way they see things, Levon, like you said, they're watching us.
Hmm.
They're watching us and they're dealing with life so differently than we were. We did not have all this internet. We did not have these cell phones, the things that we're all trying to figure out today. It's natural to them. So we have to try to give them all the foundation and all the values that we can because we're up against a world that doesn't care to put that in them. It wants to control them, influence them, tell them right is wrong and wrong is right, all of those things. But let me actually share something as well too. Didn't get a chance to share this with you specifically, Marissa, but on my way home from you the other day, I ran the person that I was with the whole entire time is a foster parent. Just
Mm.
listening to her for 2 hours talk about how much the children love her. And of course, they would like to go back to their biological mother, but at the same time, they know, they tell her all the time, we know we're loved. That's what she said to
Yeah.
me. And that means so much because these are kids that have issues, and she shared some things about it, but the love and the conversation, them calling her, are you home yet? All those things. That's it, again, the foundation. We're creating human beings that other human beings have to deal with.
Yeah.
Please do it in decency and as much order as you can get away with that God has given you the wisdom to do.
You
Because
said something so profound there is that we are raising human beings that have to go and deal with other human beings. And I remember this, and then Lavon, I'm going to let you close this out. I remember after having, I can't have any more children. So I had my tube side, no more children. And I said, I wish I would have known prior to doing that. And like, if I would have had a different mate, different whatever, I would have had more children. Why? You know why? Just for that very reason. Is because I know that I can produce some kids who would be loving and kind on the
yeah,
playground.
yeah,
And if good people, more good people, will have more children as
mhm,
opposed to having the one or two children. If we would have more good parents having more children, we would drown out
yeah,
all those kids that, we could actually probably save them because there would be more good kids on the playground than bad kids. And those good kids can kind of show the bad kids the way because there'd be the majority, not the minority. And so I just say that, like, I wish I would have known because I would have had a whole lot more kids. I'm sure I would have, but we're taught, and I was sharing this with someone else, and then I'm really, really going to be quiet. I was sharing with someone else, in this culture here in the Dominican Republic, um, in any other culture, for the most part, children are by the parents and by the natural culture, not the dominating politics or anything like that. Children are a blessing. Whether the girl gets pregnant young or whether the girl gets pregnant older, whatever, everyone in other countries and cultures, for the most part, are happy for the birth of the child. Only if it's really, like, really bad poverty, or like, in China where they're trying to control the population. But other than that, for the most part, other cultures in the US, especially in the African American, we are looked at children as a burden. We're looking at marriage as a ball and chain, and we're looking at children. We look at stuff so negatively. Um, but in other cultures, children are a blessing. And when you look at what you're giving birth to as a blessing, you treat it and you value it and you protect it a lot more than when you think it's a burden, or it's going to bring you down or stop you from some whatever is great out there, greater than what it is. But you have your children for a set period of time in regards to really, really taking care of them. And that time goes by very, very fast. And I think that we need to talk about that more than talk about them being a burden, that you you don't have much time with your children being little. They're going to grow up and they're going to grow up fast. And you want to make sure that what you instill in them is so high in value that it will be the directive by which they grab and hold on to wisdom that will guide them. So, Levon, give your closing remarks.
Yeah, that was good, Marissa, because I had one of my mentors tell me that my children would be in double digits longer than they would be in single digits. And so now
Mm,
both of them are now in double digits. My youngest is 10, and I'm watching her and I'm like, oh wow, like you're gonna be out the house in a couple of years. Like I know
yeah,
my son is there, like he got one foot in, one foot out, and I'm like he's about to be in society. And with her, I'm like trying to keep her close because she's the baby, and she like, but mommy, I'm not a baby, and I'm like, well, yeah, you are. So we are go back and forth about that. But yeah, we definitely are. I love how Dr. P said that we're raising human beings to be around other human beings. I'll just give this little short story and then I'll give my closing remarks. My son was getting ready to go to high school. It was right after the pandemic, and prior to that, I always drove him around. So he never been on public transportation, but at that time, we didn't have a car, and so I literally would follow him, like get on the bus with him, but I would sit away from him just to see what his reaction would be on the bus and how he interacted with the people on the bus. And so we would sit away from him, and then it never dawned on me that Levon, you got to go to work soon. So when it came time for me to go to work, I was like, oh wait, now you got to get on the bus by yourself. So now I'm like texting him and asking him like, are you okay? Is everything going all right? And he's like, and he wouldn't text me back. So when he got home from school, I'm like, so how was your bus ride? Like, what did you do? Did you talk to somebody? He's like, Mom, I was fine. I had my headphones in. If somebody asked me a question, I answered them. But I'm okay. I'm all right. And so now we're
oh,
2 years in with him being on public transportation. I'm still a little nervous, but I trust God and trust him to, if anything happens, he know who to call. But
right.
I was when you were saying that, I was like, oh, I definitely what they call them, helicopter mom. I was that helicopter mom. And so now I'm trying to, let him do what he needs to do because he the scary part is he is a black male in society. So I want to make sure that he does know exactly who he is and whose he is and how he fits in society. And so we're, in the process of helping him, he about to go into that career path and deciding what he wants to do. And so I love the fact that he has his own voice. I still be in his ear a little and he like, Mom, I got this. And I'm like, okay, son, whatever you need me to do, I'm here. And so he's in that process now where he's learning who he is. And I have to accept that. And whatever gift God gave him, I have to nurture it and make sure that when I'm releasing him, that he's going on a good note and a good foot to be in society. So
Oh,
my closing remark is as a mom, you make different decisions in your life that's the best for your children. And whether it's good or bad, like Marissa said, your children are a blessing. So whether the experience or what may have took place might have been a burden, they're definitely not a burden.
right.
And I always tell moms, when you're especially moms that have special needs children, it's a lot. But not to look at the situation or the diagnosis, but look at your child in their eyes, and
Mm,
you'll see that love that they give back to you just from looking at them in their eyes. Because you might not be able to see their heart, but you'll see it in their eyes of how much they love you, and it's reciprocal. Because you can definitely tell when that parent and that child has that relationship. So
Yeah.
that's and that's for any other child, whether you're an aunt, whether you're a foster mother, but you can see that love through their eyes. And so that's definitely what I, search for with my kids. They don't know, but when they sleep, I'm praying over them and giving them a kiss every night. And so, they getting kind of big. I got to bend over a little bit more to get them their kiss. But, just make sure that you're watching over them and praying over them and thanking God for them because they're definitely a blessing.
They are a blessing. They are a blessing. And sometimes on the journey we get a little like tired. Like you see me yawning, right? I'm yawning because we had a spectacular time. The only anthology and conference had such a good time, and everybody's telling me, Marissa, rest, rest, rest. But I knew it. I knew when everybody was still here that my adrenaline level was still way too high. It was too high, and that I wasn't going to be able to sleep right away. But with all the yawning that you just see me doing, I think I'm ready to go to sleep. But anyway, this has been about moms. This is about all about mothers' influence, impact, and results that we get when we love our children unconditionally, when we're affectionate, touch your babies, hug them, hold them, squeeze them. You'll be surprised at how much that reinforces their self-esteem. It makes them feel loved. It builds up their confidence. It makes them feel invincible. Nobody can do anything to them when they know that mama bear or mama lion is the lioness. Don't let her get up, because I tell you, I sit right over there in that corner, and let me tell you, I watch and observe as a mom. I'm not the helicopter mom, but I tell you what, when I get ready to stand up, you ain't got stuff in order, you better get it in order before I make my move. That's how moms are. Moms are the protectors. The ideology is that men are the protectors, but mothers, the wives, the moms, we guard the house. We're the intercessors. We're the ones praying. We're the ones believing God. We're looking out afar off to see if danger is in the air, and we are the watchers. And so, with that being said, moms, we love you so very much. Keep up the good work. Don't give up, don't faint, don't cave in, because the reward is in the end. You got it. Keep the faith, keep strong, keep doing what you're doing, keep loving on your babies. And I always say, be apologetic to your children. Don't be prideful. If you know that you're wrong, you know that you got a little off kilter because the job had you stressed out, your husband had you stressed out, your lover had you stressed out, friends had you stressed out, and you took it out on the baby. Just apologize. When we teach them that we are not perfect and how to respond to not being perfect by being humble enough to apologize, we teach our children humility and humbleness and what it means to reconcile. And so, with that being said, we love you so very much. This has been BTG, Bridging the Gap, Strategizing for Student Success. We are out. Have an incredible weekend. Be safe. We will see you tomorrow live on Sweetheart Before I Say I Do. And I believe I have a sexy, hot, fashionable couple for you. We're out. Love you. See you then.